You're listening to Operation Self-Reset with Jake Naraki. What is going on, you freaking awesome people? Welcome back to Operation Self-Reset. My name is Jake Naraki, and I'm going to cut right to the chase today. We are going to be talking about communication, how to get better at it, and what can we say to make sure that we are building long-lasting relationships. Look, there's a lot of great things that we can all do in the world of personal development, personally, individually, alone, in our own comfort, in our own shell, in our own boat, motorhome, tent, or even if you live underground. We all can have a special place that can enhance us. But at the end of the day, the only way to go out and to make an impact is to communicate. And communication is one of those skills. It is a skill that we all have. There are people that are better at it. There are people that, I don't want to say are not good at it, because everybody can communicate. It is one of the innate things that we do as humans. No matter who you are, where you're from, all that stuff, communication is absolutely key. Now, many moons ago, I talked with Jordan Harbinger, and he is from the Art of Charm podcast, and he basically talks about communication. And along the way, he has kind of driven away from really hardcore tactics in communication, but when I was able to talk with him, communication was key. And we talk about his personal story of him kind of getting out of the rat race of jobs and building networking and connections and all that fun jazz. And it's a really worthwhile episode because, again, it's communication helping us all get better. And this is coming from a guy who is now killing it in the podcasting world, killing it on stages, and killing it in communication and networking and making good relationships because of all the things that he stated in this podcast. So enjoy. Jordan, tell us about yourself. How did you get started in this, and kind of walk us through those paces?
Sure, man. I talk about this a lot on my show, but essentially what we do, where I got into this at first, the whole idea of self-development / networking was, I was a law school student. I interned for a really large British law firm and then another one in New York. Both of them were in New York, actually. And I had this mentor who was just never around. And I was like, what's the deal? They assigned me this guy. He's not even here. And he's one of the guys that hired me. So what I did was I caught up to him one day when he was in the office, once every 2 weeks or something for 5 minutes to check in or grab something. And I was like, hey, what's the deal with you never being here? I figured whatever, if they fire me for speaking too frankly, oh well. And he really appreciated that because no one ever spoke to him like that. So we went out for coffee and he told me, he's like, listen, all these chump lawyers, and he's talking about like partners too,
sure,
who he works with. He's like, all these chump lawyers are here on Sunday night at like 11 p.m. He's like, I'm out. I do jujitsu. I hang out on people's boats. I play golf. I go to lunch. I go to dinner. I go to the gym. I hang out with their wives. We go on vacation. I'm like, but you make more money than everyone else. That's what everyone says. And you're never here. So I don't get it. And he's like, I'm drumming up business. He's like, and you know what? That's more valuable than staying in and pulling late hours with billables. He's like, I'm generating business. There's always going to be somebody who can put in these long hours, who wants to make their way to the top and doesn't have this skill set. And he's like, but I'm like a pro athlete. He's like, not everybody can do what I do. So my time is better spent drumming up business. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the holy grail knowledge tidbit here.
Oh, sure.
So I was like, so how do we do that? Right. And I thought, this is great because I hate filing briefs and checking for commas in 1,000-page documents, but I'm really good at hanging out and talking to people and, developing a relationship with them. But I need to work on that skill till it's like ninja level, elite athlete level networking and social skills. That's what I need to do. And that's a fine line because you've all seen the crazy networker who like runs around and throws business cards at people, or like runs around and people think they're not really even his friend because as soon as they get to the party, he's running around chatting with everybody. You need to learn how to make really strong, really real relationships. And it's a very difficult skill set to learn on your own. So I learned that and I thought, this is the golden ticket. I'm going to make so much money as a lawyer if I do this. So I spent the next couple of years trying to master that skill set. And then I eventually became a lawyer and I was like, wow, this totally sucks. I hate this. So I quit / the market tanked. I was in real estate and I was like, you know what? I've already started a podcast about my dating life. and applied these networking skills to this. And my business partner, who everyone knows on the show is AJ, he was really good with women. So we joined forces and we started doing this podcast, the Art of Charm podcast. And we started talking about networking skills, women, dating, relationship management, all this stuff. And originally it was kind of like our growth and our learning. And then we were interviewing experts, which we still do. But we realized, listen, most people aren't breaking ground in this area. Most people aren't learning new ways to network, be effective. And if they are, they're not teaching it very well at all. Like not even a little bit at all. They're doing really lame, like make sure your resume is in good shape. It's like, that's fine. But I got my job on Wall Street, not because I made sure my resume was in good shape. I got it because I was walking around interviews that I wasn't invited to. A job fair, which I wasn't invited to.
Nice.
And or didn't register for. I was invited. I didn't register. I just showed up. And I ran into my old buddy from college who was like, hey, my roommate from college, his roommate from college is in room 104. He works for some big law firm. You should go say hi. And I was like, whatever, I guess I'll go say hi. So I ran out over there because I was bored. I didn't have any interviews scheduled. And I was like, hey, Jeremy, what's up, man? He's like, hey, what's up, man? You applying for jobs? I was like, I guess. He's like, what do you mean? Just give me your resume. You got a resume? I was like, sure. He walks over to this guy in the corner who's eating like a hoagie, shoveling food in his face and goes, hey, I got a guy. This is my friend, Jordan. He's a really sharp dude, really cool. We should talk to him. And I was like, all right. He's like, hey, man, if you don't mind me eating lunch, the other guy says, I'll interview you while I'm sitting here. And I was like, okay. So I just chatted with him. He basically asked me like what my hobbies were, looked at my GPA, looked at some of my extracurriculars, and we chatted for a bit. And he's like, well, you seem cool. You want to fly to New York? And I was like, okay. So they flew me out to New York for more comprehensive interviews, which were literally more of the same, just like making sure that I was not a crazy person or super annoying. And I got a job spot.
Wow.
By the time my plane landed, I already had a voicemail that was like, we'd like to offer you the job. I didn't even return the call because I was like, huh? If it's that easy, I'm going to look around, man. And they called me again a week later and they were like, do you want to fly back out to New York and take another look? Because we haven't heard from you. And I was like, sure. So I flew back out with my girlfriend and hung out. And I was like, yeah, I want to talk to some more people and ask some more questions. And they were like, okay. So I did that. And then they hired me on the spot. And that was like a job that paid more my first year than both of my parents made at the peak of their careers before they retired.
Wow.
And I told them, I remember telling my mom and dad my starting salary. And my dad goes, Jesus. and then he was proud of me, but he was like, yeah, what the hell, man? Like and my mom was like, wow.
Especially when you tell them that story, they're shell shocked,
Yeah, they're like, wait, what do you mean you just walked into some place and got a job for 160 grand a year? That doesn't even make sense.
Right.
And I was like, I don't get it either. And then I was like, wait a minute. There's a science to this. And granted, I went to like a good school and stuff like that, but there is a science to that too. I didn't have the grades to get in there, but I had all kinds of other things backing me up and recommendations from existing students. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that I've gotten from networking and relationships that there's just no way anybody else could ever get.
Sure.
Or would take so much work, and you're competing so hard. And there's people out there that are like, this is such BS, it's not what you know, but who you know. And I'm thinking, yeah, it totally is. And thank goodness that it's that way, because now I don't have to compete with a bunch of like genius level dudes who work 21 hours a day. I don't have to. Those guys are in a different race than me. They don't even know the game that I'm playing.
Sure.
Like they're not even in it.
Sure.
They're in the office.
Now, before we continue, you seem like a super outgoing guy. I mean, you got your stuff kind of together. You're relaxed. You're fun. You're interesting. Now, even though that old, your boss told you that little tidbit of that golden nugget that really launched you into the next hemisphere, you always, you have to have been always a social butterfly, a guy that could talk to, the jocks, to the goths, in school, and just kind of be in all different types of cliques. I mean, is that true?
Well, no, I mean, I was always shy and quiet. The reason that I'm outgoing now is because I made it a point to learn that skill set. People aren't necessarily born outgoing. You're born, this is a product of your environment. So, I was quiet all the way up through high school and even in college. I cultivated the skill set of being outgoing and learning how to talk to people. And that's what we teach at the Art of Charm at its core. Because this is a skill set. A lot of people are like, well, I can't do that because I'm an introvert and you're this loudmouth jerk from Detroit. And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that I'm making it look so natural, but
Right.
honestly, it's not like that at all. And there's plenty of people that come through the art of charm that are quiet or were quiet and are no longer, because it's all about confidence. You're not quiet because you're like, well, I have nothing to say. You're quiet because you're like, well, I don't know, maybe I should say something, but then everyone will look at me. Well, maybe they'll think I'm stupid. There's all kinds of stuff going on in there. And sure, some people, they're just quiet. But here's the test. If you think, oh, I'm just quiet, well, great. Can you go somewhere and become super social? When was the last time you did that? Because if you can't just turn it on, which I know that you can't because I do this for a living, most people can't anyway. If you can't do that, it doesn't mean, well, you're just naturally quiet. What it means is you've let a skill set rust.
Sure.
It's like a person who's like, hey, man, I could totally just randomly speak Japanese if I wanted to. No, you couldn't. You never learned how.
When you started the art of charm, is that where it kind of really propelled into finding these tools and tips to help these gentlemen in refining those skills needed to become very social and to get that confidence where you're at now? Because like you just said, you're a guy that was kind of shy and you never really had that skill set early on, but you developed into it. And now that what you're able to share with these gentlemen through the art of charm, excuse me again, is that something that kind of led into this newfound idea set of the self-belief? Or was it more of the stories that you heard from other guys having problems with finding dates that kind of rolled into it? I guess I'm trying to find that connection.
What happened was I was learning these networking skills and I was like, this is cool. I'm going to go out by myself and start meeting people. Because first thing you do when you want to learn something is you find people that are good at it. So I looked at people that I knew and I was like, this guy knows everyone. Everyone likes him. What a dick.
Right.
And then I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I should befriend these people, which is funny because one of them now is like one of my best friends. And I was like, at first I was like, this guy's such an arrogant jerk. But he wasn't. He was an awesome guy that everyone loves. And now I know why. Sure. But the other thing is, so I started modeling these guys and I was like, what do these guys do? And the answer is they try a lot of new things. They say hi to a lot of new people. They smile a lot. There's a lot of basic principles here, but there's a lot of advanced stuff at work that they don't know they don't know that they're doing it.
Sure.
And I do. I can see how they're doing it and I can model that. And here at the Art of Charm, we have drills and exercises that my instructors and I teach that build those qualities in our students. And so, for example, it might be starting a conversation that's light and playful. Because if I'm at an event, say I'm at an entrepreneur event and there's 5 people sitting down and no one's talking, or a few people are chatting that maybe know each other already, I can either be like, hi, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Oh, that's interesting. I can't really use your services. Let me turn to my left instead.
Yeah.
Hi, what's your name? That's a networking event for most people.
Right.
What I'll do is I'll walk in and be like, hey guys, what's everybody doing? Or like, hey, did you guys have the chicken? And they're like, what? There's no dinner here. I'll just do something silly like that. And then somebody might laugh politely. And I'm like, okay, that's the person that probably has the most social awareness in the group.
Sure.
So, I'll start talking to that person. And then I'll be like, do you know anyone here? And I'll be like, yeah, I know that one guy in the corner over there, but we didn't sit together because he's with some other people. And I'm like, cool. We should have him introduce us to those people. And he's like, all right. So then we'll walk over there and we'll make a little bit of a bigger group. And then I might talk to somebody that I saw in a line for the bathroom or something. And I'm like, hey man, what's going on? What brings you out here? Oh, right on. I don't go, what do you do? How can you help me? Because most people are looking for that. Now I might know 5 or 6 people and they might not know each other. So I might say, oh, you're in the car automotive space, or you make automotive parts. That's interesting. This guy over here, he machines things in China, mostly computer components, but do you manufacture your stuff here in the US? And he's like, well, I'd love to outsource stuff, but I want quality. And I'm like, well, he's machining electronics. The quality must be decent. You guys should talk. Do you want me to make that intro? And he's like, yeah, awesome. So I'm like, hey, Bill, come on over here. You manufacture in China. Do you want to help this guy out? And he might be like, listen, we don't manufacture car electronics, but let me ask a few people. Now, I couldn't help either of those guys, and neither of those guys could help me directly. But now they're like, man, that Jordan guy totally hooked us up, because now I'm getting my stuff made cheap in China maybe. And that guy's like, wow, I totally just hooked up my other friend who manufactures automotive stuff. I look like such an awesome dude right now. So now if I ever need a solid, I've got friends in every freaking niche all over the place who are like, oh yeah, Jordan's the guy who made that introduction. In fact, it just happened to me today where somebody said, oh, you're in the dating space? Let me introduce you to somebody. I don't know this person in real life. I know their friend. And so he introduced me to somebody who happened to be the CEO of a huge startup in the dating space. And they're like, yeah, we're looking for advertisers. Let me start you off with 10 grand. And he basically just tried to shove money in my pocket.
That's
on
awesome.
The first call, because that to him was nothing. And I was like, okay, you just made me a lot of money and all you did was send an email.
Right.
You know, that's incredible. And you can do that all the time from your house by talking with people and finding out what everybody's value proposition is. Sure. And hooking them up with people who need that value. And so it's all about giving value. It has nothing to do really with your value or anything like that. Like if somebody needs dating help, yeah, great, I'm here. If somebody wants to learn how to network, that's what we do. You know, becoming more charismatic and social, that's what the Art of Charm does. But I'm not going to sit around and troll for clients and students. And I'm not going to sit around going, oh, you don't run an internet company that can advertise the Art of Charm. Adios, muchacho.
Right.
I'm going, how can I help it? How can I help you?
Right.
And some people, yeah, they'll take your help and you'll never hear from them again and oh well. And some people will take your help and, you know, you might even regret doing it once or twice. But what you won't regret is developing a habit of helping other people and delivering value. Because what happens is, you know, the reason I even met that one guy who met that other guy who knew that other guy is because one of the guys came through the Art of Charm and was like, you changed my life. Oh, by the way, I know this entrepreneur guy. And he's the guy who knew the guys from the startup. So it's like a 6 degrees of separation thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. People who get the value, the give value type game, you know, like, and I say game because it's like a system that people who are not playing it have no idea.
Sure.
They don't get it. So the reason that this is so effective for people at quote unquote the top level of this social value experiment, if you will, is because we are always giving value. And we understand that it always works in return. So that's the reason that this guy was like, who can I introduce you to that can help you?
Gotcha.
And so now I don't have to worry about, he's not what's in it for me. He's how can I help you? And that's so different from most people.
Right.
That when you're networking at that level and creating relationships at that level, it's like you're printing money because you probably couldn't buy that relationship. And I certainly have not, there's not a lot of people that make 10 G's with 2 email exchanges or 4 or whatever it was. And you can do that. And I'm not trying to sit here and be like, I make so much money. I'm telling you because like it's no coincidence that I got my job that way, that I ended up getting my business that way, that I get deals that way, that my friends have been, you know, I've met a lot of my closest friends that way. This isn't a coincidence. I don't have some guardian angel who's like, bless this man with lots of good fortune. You know, lots of bad stuff happens to just like everybody else. But there's plenty of times where, admit it, you know, you go out, you go to a networking event or you go meet some people and you're like, I'm bored. Everyone here does something that has nothing to do with what I like or what I need for my business. I'm going to go home early. Meanwhile, you could have cultivated an awesome relationship with these guys who do something. And then you could meet someone tomorrow who's like, man, if I only knew X, Y, and Z. And you're like, I just hung out last night with 3 guys who do that. And they're like the top of their level.
Sure.
Why don't I make you an intro? And that guy owes you a major stake.
Right.
You know?
Right. Where did you learn that from? Where did you learn to give more than you take? You know, I mean, is that something you just developed over time? You just kind of saw that you realize you can connect better with people. You know, how did you develop that?
Well, I started to develop it when we started to talk about dating and relationships on the podcast. And it's not like I invented this concept. I mean,
No.
I think it's probably like in the Bible or something.
Right.
You know, like who knows? But
it's on the commandments,
it's
number 11.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's one of the ones that chipped off before we got down the mountain. But you know, I noticed this pattern, and me and AJ especially noticed this pattern because we started this podcast and everyone was like, dude, I want to learn this. Tell me this and this and this. And we were like, hey, now everybody wants to learn from us now that we have like girls around us and stuff like that. That's a bunch of baloney. Like, where were these guys? These guys didn't even want to talk to us. Now they want to buy us drinks and hang out with us because we have all these like people and, you know, girls, and we have this show. People want to advertise. They want us to prop this up, do that. But then we were like, wait a minute. You know what? We why don't we start giving these guys connections to the people that we know? Or like, we have girls hanging out with us that are our friends. Why don't we hook up our friends with these girls? So we would do that, and our friends would be like, dude, anything you need, man. You know, you didn't introduce me to my dream girl. And I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. When I hook people up with something that they need that they can't necessarily get themselves or don't already have, they are grateful and they want to reciprocate, which is Robert Cialdini's one of his chief principles of influence.
Right.
And I was like, how far can we take this? So it became almost like a game of how much can we help other people.
Yeah.
And so the whole company is founded on helping other people. The Art of Charm podcast is like currently 225 plus hours of free content helping people, giving value. And, you know, it's come back in massive, massive abundance. And this isn't some like woo-woo law of attraction,
right?
You know, if you build it, they will come baloney. This is the real deal, because when you change somebody's life or you introduce them to their wife or you know, help them with some problem that they didn't know they could fix, or you give them the right expert at the right time, they know they owe you a favor. And some people, it might be like, F you, dude, I don't care. But most people won't. It's a principle of human nature. It's called reciprocity. Right. And it's well documented. And so you can do that. And in that way, maybe this isn't totally altruistic. But on the other hand, it's not like you're keeping score. You're not doing the Hollywood thing where you're like, that person owes me a favor. You're just putting it out there and you're helping everybody. And then if I have an issue, I might reach out to my network and be like, hey, who do we know who does X, Y, and Z? Like, who do I know in San Francisco? When I put out on my show and on my social media that I was moving to San Francisco, I got a ton of people who were like, oh, let me, remind me to hook you up with my friend. He's like a senior vice president over at Facebook /Google /Apple, like all these different guys. And I'm like, this is great. And I was like, man, what do I need? I need my show, better featured in this. And I want, to get in some magazines. And people were like, oh, you want to get in the LA Times? Yeah, give me a call. I know one of the editors over there. And I'm like, cool. And it's that easy, because that person, again, if they're playing at the A level in terms of networking, they know that they can call me and go, hey man, who do you know who does this, and this? And it's like, oh, I've either got someone or someone in my network has someone.
Sure.
And that's a really rare skill / really rare set of connections to know lots of people. And that's really currency. And it doesn't even cost you anything to hook two people up. It doesn't.
Yeah, and it's funny because in this podcast, I talked a couple of episodes about, people want to change their lives and they want to get out of the rut that they're in. And the one thing that I say is you need to separate yourself from the people that are close to you. Your group of friends, they're great, but they're holding you back from your true potential. So I'm like, you got to go to meetups, you got to go to different conferences, whatever you think you might be interested in, go and find it and get out there and start, shaking hands and talking to different individuals. And it's really cool to hear your point of view, or not point of view. And, I'm a very outgoing guy. I can get in any situation and mingle and talk for hours on subjects. I have nothing, I have no idea what that guy's talking about, but I can go with it and act like I know. But the great thing that you said is connecting other people. And even though you may not be interested in automotive making or whatever you were talking about, it's a point of using that, listening to his story, finding his problem and going, hey, I potentially know this gentleman, or I got this person that could really help you out, and giving value. And I think that gives a whole different angle to going to meetups and going and talking to different people, because truly, if you're able to help somebody that's in a bad situation, whatever it may be, business, life, whatever, man, I mean, that is really, really great stuff. Like in those examples you gave and everything, I think it gives a totally different approach to getting out there and meeting with different people, because you can not only get your own problem solved, but you can help other people get their problem solved too. So that's awesome stuff. Now let's roll into like how somebody comes to you and they come to you. Give us the process of a normal gentleman that comes to the Art of Charm and wants to find those ladies right away. What's the first thing that you do? Do you like break them down to their bare bones and then build them back up? What's the process there?
It's kind of something like that, maybe. I mean, honestly, no. The first thing we do, we teach you our map of interaction, which is how all human interaction functions from start to finish, essentially. And that has to do with business. That has to do with intimate relationships, friendships. The map covers everything. So it's pretty extensive. We cover it in very, very detailed format. And then we start to fill in the blanks on the map in terms of dating. And so what we do the first day, or dating and relationship building, I should say, because plenty of married guys come through here as well. what we should say, or what we do first is we talk about attraction principles, both physical and emotional attraction triggers, things like that. And we teach basic attraction techniques. And these are things you can use when you go to network. These are things you can do when you go to the club or the bar to meet girls. These are things you can use at work with your bosses and coworkers. By attraction, I just mean making you more charismatic. It doesn't mean like making you sexy or whatever,
Right.
you know.
Sure.
That's a side effect of being charismatic. That's why people who are charismatic, like rock stars and movie stars, regardless of their sex appeal per se, their charisma is what makes them attractive. So that's really what that means. It doesn't mean like, you know,
Right.
it has nothing to do with intimacy necessarily or romance necessarily. So we'll teach that, and we bring in a female assistant instructor. You're going to interact with her, but you're going to do it on video. And it's nerve-wracking, and we videotape you doing it so that we can break down your body language and your nonverbal communication on camera. And we will break all of that down, and we will show you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, what needs work, and we will develop a specific set of drills for you that we are then going to run you through for the rest of boot camp to make sure that you're getting it.
Sure.
So
before we move on, what are some nonverbal cues that you see time and time again, and how can you guys fix them? Do you mind throwing out that tidbit?
Sure. So one of the things that a lot of guys do is they'll be like, they won't smile very much. And I know that sounds so basic because a lot of people are like, dude, I smile. Guess what? You probably don't when you're nervous.
Sure.
Because people go, I'm smiling. It's one of the reasons we busted out the video camera, because our coaches used to be like, you need to smile when you do that. You need to smile when you do that. You need to smile when you do that. And they'd be like, you know what? I am smiling. You just don't see it. So we're like, you know what? Let's get a camera. So we started filming people. And even guys who can't stop smiling generally, when they go up and they're starting to talk to somebody that they don't know that they're physically attracted to or nervous around, they lose it. It looks like they got to drop a load. Sorry to be, that's what their face looks like. And then we'll show, they'll be like, I was smiling. And we're like, cool, let's go to the videotape. This is what you actually look like.
Yeah.
Not what you think you look like. This is what you actually look like. And they're like, okay, you guys are right. I'm not smiling. It's kind of like when you first heard your voice on an answering machine and you were like,
right.
that sounds terrible.
Right.
That's what you actually sound like. It's not, it's not what you hear in your ears. And so we're like, you know what? We need to show people what they actually look like, because you get these guys who are like, I'm such a great charismatic dude. And I'm like, here's the videotape. You look like a huge chump. Let's fix it. So we do. We'll fix the slouching. We'll fix the eye contact, the vocal tonality, the way they sit, stand, walk, and talk. And it's not fake. We're actually making you more relaxed. We're not like, look like a cool guy and like walk around with your arms swinging out like a gorilla. You don't have to be like alpha man. We're not doing any of that garbage.
Right.
We're showing you how to relax, because when you're relaxed, that's when you're the most authentic version of yourself. That's why the best and worst dating advice is be yourself, because what your friends and female friends and sister and mom mean when they say just be yourself is be the guy that we know that's like laid back and funny and like really sweet. Be that guy in a confident way. What they don't mean is go get a haircut, go get a sweater you'd never wear, get some flowers, which you would never normally do, go to a restaurant where you normally would never go and eat, clean out your car and then act all prim and proper. That's not what be yourself is, but that's what guys do when they get that advice.
Right.
Which is why it's crap. So what we're doing is we're going, hey, you know how you look all nervous, like you got something you need removed from your keister and you're really scrunched up and you're carrying a bunch of tension in your shoulders and you're freezing up because you're all in your head and you don't know what to say and you're trying to micromanage her sort of impression of you or other people's impressions of you. We're going to take you so that you stop doing that. And then you'll actually be closer to who you are when people say be yourself. Sure. The thing is, you can't do it on your own. People try to do it on their own, but you can't, because you don't know what you don't know. It's a blind spot for everyone, myself included. I've done the video work. Whenever I'm learning a new skill, I have people videotape me doing it, whether it's broadcasting, speaking in public, or anything. I will always have some audio. Even everybody who's a champion gets a coach.
Right.
It's only the losers who don't get coaches. No, there's no athlete around who's like, yeah, man, Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan didn't go, listen, dude, I don't need a coach. I'm just really good at basketball, okay? No, they have like 10 coaches for strength, speed, shooting, court stuff. There's a million coaches for a pro athlete team. And they get more, they get more coaching from better people. So everybody who's a champion gets a coach. And people who, again, are playing at an elite level, anything at an elite level, they know that. That's why the clients who come through here are not just smart college kids or smart people in general, but we get a lot of special forces, intelligence agents, entrepreneurs, because people who are really damn good at what they do, and I mean really darn good, those people know that the best way to advance is to get mentorship or coaching. It's not to keep telling everybody else and yourself how awesome you are without anybody's help. That's ego. That's what the guy who works at Starbucks keeps telling himself. I didn't need that job anyway. Everybody who works there is lame. That's why I work here, and everybody who works here is lame. I'm too cool for all of this. And it's like, how's that working out for you?
Right.
You know?
The only way to improve is to learn from other people that can teach you in those regards. Yeah, man, that was a huge point. That was awesome. Okay, so all right, so we got down the body lingo and stuff like that. You kind of mold them, you take them, you remold them into, something that they just feel more them. And then let's talk about the approach. Let's talk about, let's generalize this conversation to more of a meetup setting. You do walk into that convention or whatever. You walk in by yourself. You got your books and pens and paper and all that stuff. And you need to approach that one person that's kind of looking around the conference also. What do you tell those people? How do you approach a conversation and kind of lighten the mood or kind of roll into a deeper conversation?
Well, I mean, that's a little bit trickier because it depends on you, and that's largely what we teach here in our boot camps. I mean, it's not a secret; it's just tailored, so it's going to be tough to find a one size fits all. But I'll go for it anyway. So essentially, once you start talking to somebody, you want to stay away from what I would call like an autopilot conversation. Yeah. And what we do here at the Art of Charm is we keep things light and playful in the beginning. We call it banter. It doesn't have to have any content at all. You're just kind of showing the other person that you're laid back and you're normal and your agenda isn't anything hard pressed. And then, once you guys have sort of felt each other out in that way, and this is the same thing for dating, then you can be like, so what brings you here? Oh, well, you know what? I got dragged here by my friend. Or, you know what? I'm working the tire industry and there's a lot of vendors here. So I wanted to see who I could meet. That's a fair question. It's not, where are you from? What do you do? Oh, that's cool.
It's cold outside.
Yeah. How's the weather? Yeah. No, it's like, cool. And then they already think, all right, this guy's kind of funny or like laid back or cool or whatever. And I told him, and then he goes, what about you? And you're like, well, I'm a talk show host and a coach, a charisma coach. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, and even if you're not that, even if you're like, I run, I'm a consultant, they're like, oh, what kind of consultant? You're talking about that, but you don't have to be like, yes, I work for Deloitte. It's really interesting. You can say, yeah, I came here because I'm a consultant, but honestly, I realize I got to step my game up. I'm actually looking maybe to make a move here. Where's your company located? Do you have any need for something like this? And if they're like, yeah, no, maybe, that's fine. If they're like, no, don't be like, well, cool, nice meeting you, dude. Be like, all right, whatever, like who do you need to meet? What are you looking to do? And they might say something like, well, I'm really trying to outsource some of my production. And you go, cool. What kind of person would that be? Like, I'm trying to think if I would know anybody that could help you. Straight up, throw it out there. And people aren't used to that, but candor is fine because people in business what we hate is wasting our time. Sure. So if someone's like, I want to help you, who do you need to meet? I might say anybody who does X, Y, and Z, or anybody that you think, might be able to help me meet somebody that does A, B, and C. And they might go, okay, let me have a think and I'll get back to you on that. Or, you know what? My brother-in-law, he works for blah, blah, blah. I don't know if he'll be able to help you, but he might have a better idea. Boom, email intro handled, and then if you run into somebody who does production or whatever, like the example I gave in the beginning of the show, you make that intro. And you can easily email these people once every 3 months and they'll be like, oh, hey, what's up, man? It doesn't matter. And now we have Facebook.
Right.
You can like passively communicate.
We're connected. Yeah, for sure.
So there's really no excuse to have a crap network in this day and age. Yeah. All that means is that you're lazy and you need to dig the well before you're thirsty. That's another really common mistake that people make when they're trying to network or build a network is they'll be like, oh my God, I just got laid off. All right, I need to network. So they go to these events and they're like, I'm an out of work web developer. Do you have work for me? No. Okay, next.
Oh,
and it's like, good luck, dude. You're going to be on an unemployment line for 8 months. Now, if I were today, like say that the Art of Charm, gets something happens where I can't do this anymore. Right. I can't teach guys how to be more charismatic anymore. I would be able to jump into a billion other jobs at the drop of a hat because I have different skill sets not just because I'm so useful and I'm so smart or whatever, but because people know what I can do, because I'm not shy about helping other people do exactly that. Like a friend of mine runs a company and he's like, dude, my salesmen are blowing it. And I go, oh, well, maybe they just need to learn how to network better instead of just trying to ask people for money all the time. So I would go in there and give a free training and he would take me out to a nice steak dinner and I'd catch up with a friend and help him out.
Sure.
Now, guess what? If my company goes bust tomorrow, who do I ask for a job?
There you go. Setting yourself up. I like that.
And it's not even for that purpose.
Right.
I really did it to help a friend.
Right.
But who do you think he's going to hire? Some guy who submits a resume via monster.com or the guy who just got done giving him a bunch of value?
Right. Oh man, that's totally good. And how do you keep in line though? Show us the back end, because I'm thinking to myself, man, I gotta get my emails in line. I gotta start, making sure I'm connecting with these people I've met throughout the years. How do you keep yourself organized with all these people you met and connected with, and the Rolodex that's either in your mind or your phone or your computer? How do you go about that?
So basically, what I do, I actually use aside from Facebook. I engage people when I see them in my news feed, et cetera. I do have a larger network. What I'll do is, honestly, I have a pretty darn good memory that I've trained, not like, oh, this guy remembers everybody. When I can't do that. I mean, there's people right now who are thinking of excuses why they can't do this stuff. And it's like, all right, fine. How's that working out for you? See you later. I don't care about that.
Sure, right.
Like for those people, turn the show off right now. If you're not going to take action, you're wasting everybody's time. But if you want to learn the systems, awesome. So there's these things called CRMs, which are for essentially for salespeople. One of the big expensive ones is Salesforce. You don't need that one. There's stuff like High Rise from 37 Signals. There's free versions of tons of these that hold 300 people.
Sure.
That's more people than you would probably meet in years that would possibly have any value for you. And that's the free level. The other one, then it's $15 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And there's stuff that you can have on your computer that probably does the same thing. And I use the one online. I use something called High Rise. And what that does, though, is it's got their contact info in it. I can set a task. So I'll hit somebody up, say that I met somewhere, and I'll be like, all right, I'll throw them in High Rise, and I can enter it. I can enter their info via email from my phone or via an app from my phone. And I'll be like, cool, I want to touch base with this guy in 3 months about how his new job is going.
Sure.
Because he works at, a content development company that's a startup that's going to be, advertising on the web. And, I'll hit him up in 3 months. And he's like, cool, thanks for remembering. I'm really enjoying the new job. It's a lot of fun. And I'll go, cool, man, let me know how I can help. And then he might go, you know what? I have to find new clients who can provide advertising for what we do. But my budget's really small. Do you know anybody who might be able to help advertise on a budget for this new thing we're doing? And I'm like, show me what it is. So he shows me what it is. I think it's cool. I give him a shout out on a podcast that has 300,000 monthly downloads. He's the office hero.
Right. Now
I check back with him 3 months later and he's like, dude, we're killing it. We got some seed funding. We're about to do a major investment. How can I focus and feature you guys on our website as something that we do? And I'm like, absolutely. So now I just got a bunch of value in return because their media company wanted to hook us up, and he loves us because we made his day 6 months ago, and so now I've got a bunch of free stuff on, free advertising on whatever new startup app they're doing, but they just got $2 million in seed funding to advertise it everywhere. That's a lot of free exposure that I didn't have yesterday, all because I did something that cost me pretty much nothing.
Oh, for sure. Now, I know we're running out of time, but one last question about yourself. You help a lot of people, find connections, find, the woman of their lives. What have you found out about yourself throughout this process? I mean, you have truly transformed your personal life by helping other people, with value and all the things that we've been talking about, which is awesome stuff. I think it'll help so many people that are listening right now. But what have you found that transformed within yourself when it came to, just connecting better, just being more relaxed, being yourself? What was the one thing that you realized?
So for me, what I learned is that this is going to sound so cheeseball, like Stuart Smalley or whatever, like Sesame Street Kumbaya. But really, I learned I'm okay as I am. People love who I am when I show them that. So I have nothing to hide. And so I try to turn that up to 11. But that's a skill because it's really hard to face possible rejection from people. And you have to learn how to steel yourself and not care and realize that when people are doing that, it has very little to do with you. And that's kind of like a Zen thing maybe, but it's not meant to be. And it really is something that takes a long time to realize, but that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Oh, for sure. Especially like you said, I mean, when you put your true self out there and people just hate it and you're like, shoot, man, that sucks. I gave them everything I had. I was truly myself and it just didn't work. It didn't connect. You just didn't jive with that person. That's a tough one. But, it sounds like you've done it more than enough that you're okay with that, and like you said, it takes time to develop that because that's a skill like you've been talking about this whole time. So truly, Jordan, man, honestly, thank you so much for your time. I think a lot of people will get a lot of good stuff out of this, connecting with people and realizing, I guess the biggest tip that I realized, I go to conventions and I'm, moving and shaking, meeting a lot of people, is giving back, is not only thinking for yourself, but thinking for the guy that you met 10 minutes ago, trying to help everybody out because, we all could use a little connection. And like you said in the beginning, it's about who you know instead of what you know, that old school approach is still alive and well, and it's all about making it work out. So how can people get in contact with you and what you have to offer?
It's so funny because I didn't even talk about dating, but that's what I was talking about, right?
Right, yeah.
All the overlap there is so ridiculous that I didn't even need to talk about dating and attraction. But there's plenty of that at theartofcharmpodcast.com. Since this is a podcast, I'm just going to plug that because that's free. You guys are already listening to podcasts. Theartofcharmpodcast.com, or go to iTunes, search for The Art of Charm. Boom. It's the big icon that says The Art of Charm on it. Hint, hint. So check that out. It's free. There's a ton of stuff. And guys who are like, where do I begin? If you go to theartofcharmpodcast.com/toolbox, there's some of the top ones that are like body language, eye contact, touching, rapport, banter, flirting, how to get over a breakup, blah, 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 a million different topics. And that's some of the core fundamentals. But otherwise, I highly recommend that you spend the next 225 straight hours drinking coffee and listening to stuff.
I love it. And also, too, if you're not in the dating, if you're not looking for a woman, you think that toolbox can help everybody else? Just
it can, yeah. Okay. Because it's like, if you're married, you need to be doing this stuff with your wife. And if there's so many married guys that listen to this and they're like, oh my God, how have I lived without this? And they're like, they'll go and they'll banter and flirt with their wife, or like, they'll do some more connection stuff with their wife. And they're like, this is my secret, man. My wife is like, what happened? We have guys call in and they're like, I literally need to tell you this. They're like, my wife sat me down and was like, are you okay? Are you sick? Is there something you need to tell me? Like thinking like maybe he's dying because he's so much more open now that she's like, what happened? Do you have cancer? And you're not telling me, and it's great to hear because it means that they're having like a crazy emotional impact. And she's like, I've known you for 20 years. You've never opened up to me like this. It's the most amazing thing. Yeah, and cool. So there's plenty to be there for guys who are married. There's a lot there for women who want to see how guys think, because we are very candid on the show. I mean, I talk about everything from how much of a disaster, I was back in the day, to client stories, keeping everybody anonymous. But also, we really do focus on, this is the stuff that guys don't talk about until they've had like 4 beers and they're like, how come girls don't like me, man? I like them and I'm nice and I just get walked on, dude. What's up? Right. We'll talk about it to millions of people, cool.
Thanks again to Jordan Harbinger for coming on the show, and obviously his tips, tactics, and ideas were awesome, right? I mean, truly, a guy is willing to get out there and inspire other individuals. So with that being said, go out there, be freaking awesome. If you know somebody that needs a little bit of awesomeness in their own personal life, feel free to share this episode in particular. Until next week, Wednesday, keep on doing something freaking awesome. We'll see you guys. Thanks for all your love and support. Have a great day. Bye.